As we showed in our previous video, what we did is we set up the project by using what we call the project browser and the project navigator. Whenever you close a session and you begin again, the first thing you should always notice when you open AutoCAD Architecture is that you're working in the project that you want to work on. So oftentimes you'll see a project navigator already, even before you start, already on the right hand side. Sometimes you will not see that. As an example, if I was to close that and I opened up on my quick access toolbar up in here, my project navigator, you can tell right now that if I go up to the project, the last project I worked on should be the project that's on there. And this was a project called 2017001 Sarah's House. So on this case, this is not the project that I want to do. So I need to change this. Now I don't need to do it right here. The first thing I want to do is go up to my quick access toolbar here again and hover over the project browser, left click. What you're going to get is a pop-up window in here that shows you what folders you can access to get different projects and go on. What we are looking for is an APJ file with the proper project. As you can see, the one that is highlighted here in bold is 2017001 Sarah's House. So what we want to do is we want to find the project that we saved last time. So what I need to do is I need to go ahead and search for it by clicking this light blue bar in here. And if you look at it, it's basically a folder tree that goes from the desktop to this PC, etc. Now, what I had done is I had manually moved my project from the desktop where we initially set it up, and I moved it to a more appropriate folder in the Drafting Assistant module that I needed it to be in. Now, this means that you have to sort of repath the project. And this can happen also just by simply saving it to a jump drive that on the computer, let's say in the office or at school, happens to be a E drive or F drive. And when you plug it in at home, you might be plugging it into a D drive. So it needs to find it because it needs a viable path. So let's find where I moved that project to. So I'm going to left click on the bar right up in here. And I'm going to go to McFatter Drafting Courses. I'm going to find Drafting Assistant in this case. Now yours may be in a different location. And I'm going to go to where I moved that project. And I moved it here to Drafting Assistant Intro and Project Setup for the Northern Home. I'm going to open up that folder, and right there is the APJ file that I am looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to double click it. Let's go ahead and double click it. And if you notice, what happens is you should get a pop-up window if it happens to be in a different drive or a different folder that says the project appears to have moved. What do you want to do? Repath the project now is what we want to do. What this is going to do, repath all your files so that they'll be able to communicate with each other. So let's go ahead and left click on that. And in the background, what is happening is the program is beginning to repath whatever project files you've had. The more files you have, the longer it'll take. So this was relatively short, and what we have right now is, if you look, we can find out the location where the project is, and there in bold is the APJ file that I need to find. Once I get all that done, I'm going to close right here the project. And once it closes, and I should be able to get a revised navigator in here. If you take a look at now, my project, the Northern Residence, is my current project. This has changed right here. And so when I click off of it, it no longer says Sarah's House. It now says 20001 Northern Residence, which is the project we want. Once again, in the previous video, we set up all our project data. We set up our project levels. So what we're going to do now is let's go ahead and begin constructing the different levels. Usually I like to go and begin the construction with what I would consider my benchmark level. and that is our main level for this house. So let's go ahead, I'm going to double click that. That's going to open up my drawing, and if you look on the tabs right up in here, the one that's open is my construct 2020-001 main, and now I can begin to draw here. We also set up units, we set up a number of different parameters that we can begin drawing with. I also have here on the left, I have a couple of docked palettes that I can turn on and off. They're also minimized so that when I move my cursor off of it, they stay docked in the left. When I'm ready to draw, I'll go ahead and begin drawing there. Same thing down in here with the properties. So once I start drawing, I can take a look at the properties of the elements that I am drawing. Now, how do I get those palettes? A couple of them you're going to be able to get right here on the Home tab on the Tools panel. So you see Design Tools there, Content Browser, and there's Properties. So all of those are pretty well turned on. For now, the Properties and Design Tools are the ones that I'm going to go by. So let's start, and in the previous video I demonstrated how to begin to draw walls, etc. So where am I going to get my information for the setup that I'm going to be able to do? So what I look at is a system of red lines that I have marked up, and I have also saved them as a PDF file. So what I'm going to do is, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this down here so you can see what I'm looking at. I happen to have two monitors. We could also print this out so you could have a hard copy to look at. But this file, which is a PDF file taken from the Architectural Design and Drafting book, that shows from Chapter 18 what we're going to call the Northern Home or the Northern Residence. You can call it something else, but it's got a series of what I call red lines, but in this case they happen to be blue. That's going to show you some of the things that we want, either modifications from the base plan as it is shown in the book, and also showing preferences that I want to do. So the first thing I'm going to take a look at is I am going to go ahead and take a look at what the structural composition of this house is going to be. If you notice on the top right here, it says 6-inch stud. Our exterior walls are going to be 6-inch stud. And what they'll do is they'll wrap around the house, not including the garage, around the kitchen and around the front of the house, all the way around the exterior. And then the garage walls are only going to be 4-inch stud. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start laying out one or two walls, and I'm going to be taking a look at all these dimensions. The next thing I want to do is, I don't like using fractions that much, so what I'm going to try to do is avoid as many of the fractions as possible. And then we're going to give ourselves a little bit of leeway in terms of what the exact size of the house is or the rooms that we're going to want. We may make some slight modifications to things that may or may not work. So let's take a look at our dimensions here along the vertical. Shows you 36 feet all the way through. Also shows you 28 feet to the outside of the stud wall at the front of the living room and the back of the family. Across it's showing all the way to 61 feet. The garage is 23 feet, etc. So this is what I'm going to be looking at on my second screen. Once again, if you have a second screen, that's where you could be looking at it. Or if you have printed them out or have been given a printout, you can look at that printout also. So, getting back to AutoCAD architecture, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and go to the Home tab, the Tools panel, and you're going to take a look at right in there. This is what we call the Design palette. If you don't have some of the things, if yours is a little bit different, I'll show you how to modify that. But if you had clicked on the small little arrow, you see a number of different tools that you can use here. The Design Tools, which is what I'm using, the Content Browser, the Properties, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the Design Tools in here. Now if I hover off of that and I close that up, you notice that it closes up. But the minute that I hover over it, it's going to open up. Now the way that I have it set up is I have a general tab called Design that has everything sort of spaced out in there, and then I get more specific with some of the other tabs such as walls, doors, windows, etc. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go and I want to start by using the walls command, and I'm going to look for 6-inch stud here. Now I happen to have this in here, but let's say as an example I did not have it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete. Are you sure you want to remove 6-inch stud item? I'm going to go ahead and delete that so I can show you how to find it. So I don't have stud 6 anymore on that, so I need to locate it. 2 places I can go to. Number 1 is go back up to the tools here, and I can go to Content Browser and Snap right here, or I can go back to my tools, design, hover over it, and then you'll see here this is an actual sort of subsection of the Content Browser, and click more wall tools. The way I'm going to do this so that you sort of see the sequence that we go through, I'm going to go ahead and click on the General Content Browser. What that's going to do is that should present a pop-up window that is giving me like a catalog library of the things that I want to include in here. So the thing that I really want to take a look at to be able to get those items that I'm going to be drawing is going to be going to the correct library or book or catalog that I need. The one that I'm going to use is Design Tool Catalog Imperial, because we're working with imperial units, feet, and inches. So I'm going to left click on that. And what that's going to do, it's going to open it up, and right in here I have a certain number of sections that I can go to. Well, it's kind of numerical, so the last one I'm going to go to is walls. I'm just going to left click on that, so then you can see that right in here we have a series of different styles of walls. This is brick. When you look at it, that's got a number of different options here. I'm going to click back on walls. The ones we're looking for is stud. So it's actually got 9 pages of it. I'm just going to go and jump a little bit ahead, and there you can see that I'm finding stud 6 right there. How do I add that? I could, by the way, just add this directly to my drawing by, if you notice when I move my cursor over it, it turns into a eyedropper, and I could just drag that and drop it right into my drawing, but that's not going to add it to my palette, so I would have to have this open all the time. So the easiest thing for me to do is to go ahead and drag it to my tool palette right in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and leave that as open. I'm going to go back, make sure my content browser is still open so I can come back, and I'm going to go ahead and drag this and drag it right in here. Now notice that black bar that comes up. That means it's going to drop it wherever I decide to drop it. So I'm just going to drop it between 4 and 6 so it's sort of sequential in there, and now you can see that stud 6 has been added. So if I can't find anything in here for what I want on a markup or anything like that, you can either find it in the content browser, or we can actually use another style and design one further. This way we just were able to find the stud 6. So I'm going to go ahead and start drawing the stud 6. So I'm going to left click on it, and I'm going to draw straight across here. And for now I'm just going to do it about 60 feet. I'm just going to go ahead and press escape, and I'm going to start by drawing a few lines, maybe in a construction layer. So if you take a look at this, what's happened was it created, once I put that wall in there, it created a layer called A-wall. That means that this, when you take a look at this right here, and we go to, let's go ahead and minimize, hold on. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this over Docket, but when I go to my properties here, you can see the layer right in there is A-wall. The other thing to look at is to take a look at where that dashed line is. That's a justification line. That can be modified in the properties here under the justification. Okay, right now it's under baseline. For the stud 6, it was located, happens to be located there. If I click this little arrow, we can flip the justification. Now the one thing I do want you to not to use is this under the Home tab. I don't want you to use this build panel for the walls or the doors. There are going to be some occasions where we will, but in this case we want to be more specific. The wall that is used here, if you click wall, it's going to be a standard wall with a different justification and different parameters. We don't want to use that. So a couple of other things now. What I can do is now I can go back to my tools in here, go back to stud 6. I'm going to go ahead and draw a vertical one in here. Now I want that for now. I'm going to want that justification is on the outside. So I'm going to go and I'm going to go to a depth point layer, or I could create a layer called construction, but I want something just to use as guidelines. So that what I can do is I can start mirroring walls, copying walls, offsetting walls. I find that a lot quicker than having to go all the way over back here to the tool palettes design and clicking on there. So I'm just going to go with depth points right now, and I'm going to click a line right in here. I'm going to go ahead and copy this one, and I'm going to copy it over. I'm taking a look at my markups, and I'm going to do 61 feet. And what I can do is I can now copy. My computer just froze a little bit, so it's still thinking. I'm going to go ahead and copy this wall from here to here. I don't like the justification on the inside, so I'm going to flip it to the outside. And what I've got is my first 61-foot length that I was taking a look at. So I'm going to go ahead and fillet those two walls in there. Now I'm going to looking at my drawing again, I can tell that from the back wall to the front wall in the living room, it's going to be 28 inches. So I'm going to either copy, or I could just use the mirror command, but then I'd have to find a midpoint. So what I'm going to do is draw another line in here, and I can copy that line, and I'm going to copy that down 28 feet. And then I can go ahead and copy my wall. I'm going to copy it from here and just move it to here. I can fillet these two. I'm going to check my justification. Just flip that justification right in here. So the next step that I can see is I've got from this 61-foot line, I know that my garage comes over 23 feet. And then it's a 4-inch wall, so I'm going to offset that line 22 feet 9 inches. So I'm going to use offset 22 feet 9. And where this line is, I'm going to go ahead and copy this wall from here to here. I'm going to fill it down here. My justification should be correct on this wall, which it is on the outside. Now I'm going to take a look at my depth right here, and looking at the markups I can tell that it's saying it's 12'4" from outside to outside. So I'm going to go ahead, and if I just wanted to do it by math, I could say, okay, we got a 6-inch wall, they want it to be 12'4". I need to copy this a certain distance over, but all I'm going to go ahead is just go ahead and copy this guy and copy it down 12'4". I'm going to go ahead and grab it by the grip here, and what I can do is I can copy this guy from there to here, fillet, and fillet these two. Check my justification back to the outside in here, and I've got pretty much the outside layout that I want for these walls. Now one thing, if we go 3D orbit in here, you can tell that what I've been doing is actually drawing in 3 dimensions. Now my walls down here, or I'm sorry, my lines down here are on the base drawing. Now how can I justify the fact, or how can I make sure that whenever I draw that I stay drawing my sketches and so on down on that level? Well, as I mentioned before, one of the main things and important things that you should always do when you begin a drawing is lock your Z. If not, if any of these walls are down deeper, for example, we may modify that later on in the garage, you have potentially the problem of snapping down to the bottom of the wall that might be at -1 foot, etc. So for now, what I want to be able to do is I want to make sure that we have got our walls located in the proper location, both horizontally, vertically, but also in terms of the Z-axis. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to begin with my garage walls, begin to draw those. And so what I need to do is I need to change from my stud 6 to stud 4. Again, looking at the markups, you can tell that the walls going around the garage are going to be stud 4. So I'm going to draw this way. My justification happens to start on the outside. I'm going to draw this way. I'm going to draw this way, And notice this one is not, so all I really need to do is, if you look at your command bar, I can flip it, and it's now drawing it in that direction. And I am going to go ahead and draw that there. Now I have to make a couple of corrections here, so I'm going to check my distances. So I'm going to go ahead and measure from the outside to the outside. My markup tells me that that is supposed to be 23 feet even. Right now it's showing it as, I'm going to do it one more time to double check, it is showing it as 23 feet 1 inches. So what I want to do is I want to grab all of this and I'm going to stretch it over 1 inch. So I'm using the stretch with a crossing selection, and I'm moving this over just 1 and enter. Now I'm going to go ahead and let's measure the distance one more time from here to perpendicular, and I'm at 23 feet, exactly where I want to be. Now I can just delete these lines right now. To me, having too many lines gets a little cluttered, and if the drawing's cluttered, my mind tends to be a little bit cluttered. So one thing also is, in the markups, either the engineer or the architect would probably tell you how high these walls have to be. You sort of have to have an idea of what the structure is going to be, how big the floor structure is going to be, so that you determine what the stud height or the wall height is. The default for this, if you just click on one and you go to properties, you can tell that the base height is shown at 10 feet. We want all of these base heights for this portion of the house to be at 8'2". When we have a floor to floor, as we developed in our project over in here, if we go back to our project and we take a look at here, you see that our base main elevation, that's going to be what we're drawing now, is at 0. My next level, my upper level, is at 9 feet. Well, that means a floor to floor, so whether it's the top of finished floor, top of subfloor, to the top of the next level's finished floor or subfloor, we have determined that to be 9 feet. But you also have to take into account the floor structure. In this case, our floor structure is going to be a total of 10 inches. So if you have a 9 foot minus 10 inches, you are left with 8'2", which is going to be the stud height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just highlight all the walls here. And as long as you're not hitting any other element other than the walls, you should be able to go right here and adjust this, and all walls should be able to adjust to 8'2". And as an example, if I just click on that one and you look at it, our properties are at 8'2". Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and notice one other thing. I haven't put any windows or doors on these walls. The beauty of AutoCAD architecture, and later on when you get into Revit, is that we're able to just cut them in once we select them and place them on the wall. So rather than having to cut this wall, what we can do is actually just place a door in here or a window over in here, and it will automatically cut it out of the wall. So that's a very powerful tool that we're going to be using. So first I'm going to concentrate on my walls, and then I'll be placing doors, windows, openings, etc. So let's go ahead and let's start working our way. If we take a look at our markup, it gives me that the first wall to where the stair is going to be, and I'm going to go back to depth points here. I'm going to go ahead and draw a line in here. It says that wall is located at 13 foot 5 inches over. And then it's telling me that the next wall over is 11 foot 4.5. I'm just going to do it at 11 foot 4. So that is also located right from where the 13.5 was to 11 foot 4. So I'm going to copy that and put 11 foot 4. I could even do 11 foot 5 because the kitchen's a pretty good sized kitchen, and that's going to give me a little bit more room in that bathroom. So I'm just going to go ahead and make that 11 foot 5. These are some of those adjustments that I was talking about before. Now, I'm going to go ahead and copy this wall and copy it from here to here, where I want that wall to be. But this is a stud 6 and I want it to be a stud 4. So what do? I just copied a stud 6 wall. Well, you're going to highlight that wall, and based on where that justification line is, let's go to the properties. And right there it tells me that the style is stud 6. But since we already have a stud 4 in our drawing, if I just left click in here twice, you notice that we have the standard option and the stud 4. I'm going to select stud 4, and the wall automatically changes to that. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check where this wall justification is in relationship to this next offset, and this is supposed to be located right there. That works out great. Alright, so let's go next. I'm going to go to the family room, and I'm going to get one long horizontal length of wall that's going to go all the way across in here. Now it tells me that it's supposed to line up with this in here, but I'm going to start over here and see if that's the case. So it's giving me a dimension on this side of 12 foot 2. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this over down 12 foot 2. And then I can start and draw my wall from that point. So once again, I'm going to copy this up to here. But I'm going to change my wall. That's also supposed to be a 4-inch wall from stud 6 to stud 4. And that looks like that's going to line up pretty good. But for now, I'm going to pull it back because I didn't like the way that was meeting in there. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's do a little bit of trimming in here. Get those out of the way, and then I'm going to stop a couple of these walls short in here. It's also telling me that the width of the stair inside is 3 foot 6. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line in here. And I could offset or copy this 3 foot 6 this way. I've already changed this to a 4-inch stud wall, and I want 3 foot 6 clear inside. So, whoops. Repeat copy. From here to here. That gives me my 3 foot 6 inside. And then here the critical dimensions are, we've got a hallway that's going to end up in here, and a small bathroom, powder room in here. And from the dimensions that it's telling me that dimension clear inside for the bathroom is going to be 3 foot 6. Now, if you're good at math and you're good working with inches, etc., you can tell that if I copy this guy over 3 foot 6, I'm going to end up being 4 inches short because I didn't take account into this. But if I copy it over 3 foot 10, well, 3 foot 10 minus the 4-inch thickness of the walls, I'm going to get my 3 foot 6 dimension in here. So let's see what we got going in here. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to eliminate these two lines. I'm going to go ahead and trim this out right here. And I could actually trim this out right in here. I'm going to delete this line in here so we can see everything's pretty clean indicated in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring this over to here, and let's see how this cleans up. Sometimes these walls aren't happy meeting together, but that one met very well. Since I have not been drawing new walls and I've been copying walls, my properties should tell me that they are at 8 foot 2. They are at 8 foot 2. Now, if you had drawn them from the design tools and started a new wall, you would be defaulting to 10 feet. So you would have to make sure to change those dimensions. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this right in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start breaking up the powder room in here. There's a small closet here, and these need to stop a certain distance from this wall. So I am going to go ahead and take a look at what we've got here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to do a couple of things a little bit different. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull down the markup so that we can see what's going to be happening with the stair right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start the stair somewhere in here based on the dimensions they give me. So I've got a 6 foot dimension plus I actually need to zoom in on this one a little bit to see it better, plus I think a 5 foot 8 dimension. So that looks like it's going to be 11'8". So let me go ahead and draw a line, and that is taken from the inside here. And I'm going to move, copy, offset, and I'm going to put it at 11'8" right there. And I'm going to trim this one. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and trim both walls for now, and I'm going to clean that up a little bit later. So let's go ahead and leave that right there. I've got the dimension I want in here. Now let's take a look at the bathrooms, and what we have is a 3'6" and a 3'7", which gives me 7'1", which is going to be to the outside wall in here. So I can copy this 7'1". But I need to take a close look at what we've got going on in here, because if I take a look at my markups, this section of the wall right here, because there's a toilet there, is going to be 6 inches deep instead of 4. So what I need to do is I actually need to break this wall right here. So I could use the break command, and I'll select the objects here and here. And what I've done is I've broken the wall into 2 walls, and I'm going to fillet this, and I'm going to go ahead and extend that one to there. But now what I can do is change this. I'm going to change justification, because if I change this from a 4-inch wall to a 6-inch wall, justification line stays still. I want it to go, and that means that it's going to stick out 2 inches here. I want it to come out 2 inches this way. So I'm going to flip this. Then I'm going to go back to my properties, and I'm going to change that one from a stud 4 to a stud 6, which fixes my wall right there. Now notice we're getting some mistakes right in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and trim this out. There might be some issues in terms of the filleting right in here. I'm going to try to clean that up and see what we can do. This is not an uncommon situation, how this ends up happening. So until I can clean that up, let's see what we've got. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a little while. Now just by moving that, and let's see what happens if I extend this. There, we seem to have fixed that up pretty well. So I'm going to double check this dimension right in here and make sure that we have the 7'1" from here to here. So let's take a look. And so our distance there is supposed to be 7'1". I've only got 6'11" because we extended this wall down. So by using my stretch with a crossing selection, I'm going to stretch this down 2 inches. And now if I take a distance from what's indicated in the plan, I've got my 7'1". The next dimension that it says, it's got 2'3 1/8" for this closet. I'm just going to round it off with 2 feet inside and a 4-inch stud wall on the outside. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this down, and instead of 2'3 1/8", I'm just going to do that as 2'4". That gives me 2 foot clear inside. I can fillet this right here, and let's see what happens if I fillet this again, if I'm still going to get my errors, which I do. So how do we fix something where we can't seem to fix it at almost any time? Sometimes what you can do is you can flip that, okay, from one side to the other, notice, and that might solve the other problems. The other times you may need to do what's called a cleanup. If you highlight one of the walls and you right click, you get a bunch of potential commands right in here, and one of them happens to be clean up, and then you can do a number of different commands here to help clean up the problem. A lot of times I'll end up doing add wall merge conditions, any of those things. In this case, just by flipping the justification, we were able to fix that. Alright, so we've got a couple of more walls to do in here, and then what we can do after that point is begin to do some line work and start to draw and insert our doors and our windows. Again, all of these things you can begin to modify as you go through with this. So if you put in a 3-foot door and you wanted to put a 2'8" door, easy to change later on. So let's continue and work our way over from this part of the house, and on our markups it tells us that that first wall that we've got there is supposed to be 13 foot 3 1/2 inches from the outside to the wall. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to draw a line here, and I'm going to copy, and I'm going to copy that over 13. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and round off the 13 foot 4. And I don't want to do 6 because I want to be a little bit more efficient. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and copy one of these walls and place it right in here. I can then extend, and I'm going to trim this out right here. The next one they're telling me is going to be, this looks like it is a total of 9 foot 8 1/2 to the outside here. So I'm going to copy 9 foot 8. Oh, let's try that again. Repeat copy from here and type in 9 foot 8 and see where that ends up falling. And now I can just copy this wall from here to perpendicular. And this one's going to fall a little short because we're going to get a hallway to come down in here, so no problem there. And then it's telling me that our wall, the horizontal wall here to create it, is a total of 7 foot 10 1/2. I'm going to change that to 7 foot 10. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line here. And I can move, copy, offset. I just got to make sure to delete it later on, 7 foot 10. And I'm going to take one of these 4-inch walls here and move it right to there. And I'm going to fillet these two. And I'm going to trim this one out. So in a matter of just a few lines, I'm deleting all my guidelines in here. We've sort of got the beginnings of the main level laid out in here. Now, because I copied again a lot of the walls and so on, I was able to just go ahead and change them all to 8 foot 2. But the minute I get into 3D, I can tell that there may be some issues. So here we go. I'm going to take a look at conceptual, and I can tell that this wall right up in the front is probably still not the right height. So I'm going to go ahead and change it right here at the properties and make it match the rest of them at 8 foot 2. I'm going to get out of conceptual and go back to 2D wireframe, go back to my top view. And now what I can do in the next move is I can do two things. I can either begin to do some of the things that we're only going to do as line work, such as maybe countertops, the entire fireplace assembly there we're just going to do as two-dimensional line work. Of course, all the annotation and so on is going to be two-dimensional line work. So in a sense, this is a hybrid of both three-dimensional objects and two-dimensional line work. How detailed you get with your three-dimensional work depends on sort of who you're working for, what the contract is in terms of how much time you want to spend 3D modeling. A lot of the architects right now are using this hybrid system where part of it is 3D work, especially for the doors and windows, exteriors and roofs, so that they can do exterior renderings and show the client. If you're getting heavily into the detailing of the interiors, you're going to want to do that. You just got to make sure that your boss or your client is understanding that that's going to be more time, and it needs to take, obviously be reflected in the contract. You don't want to start detailing something that is going to basically take up so much time that you fall behind in terms of your budget for the project. So now at this point, as I mentioned before, we can either continue detailing this a bit, or what we can do is we can begin to lay out the other levels to make sure that all our walls line up before we start adding windows, doors, line work, etc. The only thing I want to make sure is that when we do the other levels or the other floors, that things that need to be structural or align vertically, align vertically. So as an example, and you got to be careful about the layer you're in, so for now I'm just going to go back to layer 0, and some of these things we are obviously going to add specific layers. that indicates the first riser of the stair. So I want to make sure when we draw the basement, or that we draw the upper level, that our width here for the stairs are going to be identical, that this bearing wall right at the middle that runs across our house is going to be the same location as we have it on the basement, and we have some kind of support for the load transfers from the upper level to the main level down to the basement level, obviously down to the ground. So the next thing I need to do, which I haven't done yet, is you notice that the asterisk here on our panel up in here on our tab is an asterisk, so I want to go ahead and I want to save the drawing. I'm going to go ahead and save it, and I lose that. And so what I can do now is I can begin drawing. I'm going to go ahead and start with the upper level, and then I'm going to go ahead and go down to the basement. Now there is one more wall that is indicated on the markups that indicates a 4-inch high, a 4-inch thick brick wall across the front of the house. Now you're going to notice that because we're using separate walls for that, when we do place the windows and doors, it's not going to cut through that. Now we could have done a composite wall in here, but that's a whole other lesson plan and gets a little bit deeper. There are solutions to it working the way that I'm going to show you right here. So I'm going to go back to my palette right in here, and I'm going to look for brick 4, and I'm going to start right here on this corner. Notice it's going in the wrong, it's going inside my wall, so I just need to go down here and flip, and I'm going to go ahead and just go to, I'm going to go ahead and pull it over to here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and flip this wall so that now the end of my wall will find that intersection point. And what I can do is I can maybe fillet this and clean that up. So right now I have a 4-inch wall. Let's go ahead and see all the problems that has created. It's a huge wall all the way up. I'm going to go ahead and, for now, since I don't know what height that it's going to be in yet, I can go to the properties here and change it from 10 feet to 4 feet to 3 feet, whatever I want in that case, or I can grab it by this grip and just pull it down somewhere right in there. Let's go ahead and try that. Make sure I'm not snapping anywhere that I shouldn't be. Okay, if that doesn't work, I'm going to go ahead. I could go to the front view, but let's go ahead and let's just change this to, for now, let's just do it at 4 feet. Okay, so now we've got a low brick wall in here at the front of the residence. I'm going to go ahead and save that once again. And everything that we're going to do, remember, we're not creating any new drawings by going up to the application icon. We're doing all of our work through the navigator. There's no other choice. We need to do it that way. So let's go ahead and now let's go to the upper level. I'm going to click that right in there. Notice I now have my main and my upper level. Now, click real quick back to the main. I don't have an exact distance here from my origin of where I located this. Well, some people like to use this back corner. Start that on the 0, 0 in here. It really doesn't matter. What does matter is that you line up all your levels correctly. And that if you decide to move or correct anything, that you move all the layers. All the layers need to be turned on. Nothing can be isolated. So just I'm going to go ahead and save that again. And what I need to do is, if you remember from the initial introduction and setup, what I need to do is to bring in an X reference in here of the main level that I just finished and use it as a guideline. So I'm going to go to my Insert tab, go to Attach right here. I'm going to make sure I'm in the right project, okay, because you got to be careful. So McFadder Drafting is supplemental. I'm still in Sarah's house. I don't want to be there. So I want to go to Drafting Assistant, and I want to find the correct location where my project is. There's the Northern Home. There's Introduction. Let me see if that's where I need to be. Okay. So I'm going to go into McFadder Drafting. McFadder Drafting Courses. Drafting Assistant. I need to find, let's go ahead and pull this over. Intersection Northern Home. And let's try this one right here. Let's go to supplemental. And what we need to do is we need to find our drawing. Okay, so this is a very, very important part that we're able to locate the correct project. Now we know we're in the correct project right now by what we were able to do when we first found out. But the same thing applies to where you want to attach from. What's going to happen is if you had opened up AutoCAD Architecture in a previous and you were in a different project, the default for inserting and attaching or detaching files in XREF stays to where the old project is. So what we got to do is we got to find the new project. So I'm going to go all the way back to desktop, and I'm going to follow the path McFadder Drafting. I'm going to go to MTC Drafting Courses, Drafting Assistant, and what I need to do is to find the right project where I put this in. There it is right there. That's the next level, and there's my Northern Residence with the proper construct. So I'm going to go here, and now I'm no longer in Sarah's house, so I'm going to go ahead to Main, and you can see a little thumbnail of my main level. I'm going to open. I'm going to do it as an overlay. Now, in reality, we used to call these underlays, so that when you drew by hand, you used to put the piece of paper over what you've already drawn so you could trace over it. But in this case, it's called an overlay, which is fine. The only thing you have to understand is that this is as a temporary placeholder. Now, the one thing, everything is fine in here, the scale, the insertion point. The only thing I want to do is I want to change my Z insertion point to -9 feet. And the reason I do that is because our walls are 8'2", and I want to make sure that this, we do not start getting too many of those triangles where you have two walls trying to occupy the same virtual space. By doing that, that helps it quite a bit. So I'm going to do OK, and there it is right there. And I'm going to make sure and look down here and make sure that replace Z value with current elevation is still shown in. So what ends up happening is when I start laying out my walls for the upper level, that they are going to be properly located and not accidentally snap to the level of where my walls would be down below. So what I can do is I can comfortably feel that I can begin to lay out my walls here. Now, regardless of the dimensions that you may have in your markup, there are certain things that have to line up. So, as an example, the back wall and this wall are going to line up. The upper level wall, exterior wall, is going to line up with this 6-inch bearing wall in here. The only thing that's going to be a little bit different is this front wall, which is going to actually extend out a little bit. So let's take a look at, and I'm going to go back to my main a second. I'm noticing a couple of things in here that look a little bit exaggerated. So I want to take a look at this wall. I'm going to go back to my main. I want to take a look at this wall, and that's a 6-inch stud. Let's take a look at this one. That's a 6-inch stud, and this one is a 6-inch stud. Okay, excellent. Now, why does it look, I'm going to go ahead and save that one more time. And the reason this looks different is because it's taking, I'm going to go ahead and reload, it's taking both the 6-inch and the 4-inch stud wall together. So if I went to isometric, you would see that it's actually looking at the top of both those walls, but it's just indicating it as a much wider wall in here. So what you have is you have 6 inches here, and you have the other 4-inch here. Now that becomes kind of an issue, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to depth points in here, and what I want to do is clearly show where that 6-inch demarcation line is. Put on my ortho, and I'm going to go ahead and move this guy down here 6 inches, and that's really where my exterior 6-inch stud would be, and the rest is 4-inch. And the reason I need that is because the way that this sets things up, I want to make sure to double check it. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this line in here. The markups tell me that this is going to be 30 feet down here. So this should be a 2-inch offset. I'm going to do a right in there, and I've got my 2 feet. So that works out beautifully. All right, so I've got my guidelines, and now I'm ready to draw my walls. So in this case, I'm starting from scratch, so I'm going to go ahead and go to design, and I'm going to start with my exterior walls again. I'm going to start here and work my way around. Now I can, if I have object snap on, sometimes what I can do, let's see if I've got it on. I do have object snap tracking, so I should be able to carry this up. Now if you can't, doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and draw one to there. I'm going to repeat the add wall command, start a wall here, bring it down to here, repeat add wall. Now you notice it's on the wrong side, so I'm just going to flip it, and I'm going to pull that to there, and repeat wall add. Again, it's on the wrong side, so I'm going to flip it, and just bring that out into here. Now, all that means is that I just got to do a couple of more commands, and I can fillet all of these walls like that. Clean. I think this still needs some fixing up. Go ahead and delete my guideline in there. Go ahead and delete this guideline in here. There's my wall down below. I'll go ahead and hide this and see why that didn't clean up. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to, I can either go to the isolate objects and hide objects, or I can unload. I'm just going to hide objects in this case. I'm going to try filleting these two again and see why that's not cleaning up. Well, let's check and see what happened. Alright, so I think what happened is that I may have started this wall as a wrong. If I go to the wall add, which you saw me do, it defaults to the standard wall. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that all of these walls, notice right here it has style varies, so it was an error that I made, so I want to change this guy, properties. Okay, that one is a stud 6, but I think I did all of these as new walls by standard wall. I need to change that. So I want, from standard, I want to go to stud 6. Now, that looks much better. I'm going to go up, and I'm going to go ahead and isolate objects and objects isolation, and I'm good to go. So you notice what ended up happening. If I go here and I go to recent wall add and do that, it's going to default, you take a look at this, to a standard wall. I don't want that. Remember, it's one of the things that I said. I want to make sure that these are all in the correct type. So, for style. Alright, so let's go ahead and I'm going to start laying out some more walls. I've already got some walls to use as guidelines. I'm going to go ahead and move this one over. I'm going to go ahead and change that to a stud 4. I don't have any in my drawing yet, so guess what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to my tool palettes design. I'm going to start here, stud 4, and that works just as well. The only thing, if you recall, that I need to make sure is that any new walls that I do are going to be at 8'2" instead of the default 10 foot. So I'm going to go 8'2", and then I can copy this guy over from here to here. I'm going to worry about trimming them out later, because some of these are going to be obviously at a different location based on a couple of things that we're going to go by. And there are some dimensions here that you're not going to see, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you what are pretty standard in terms of distances that bathrooms should be, thicknesses, etc. So at this point, I've also got a wall that's going to be representing this location going across, and then the rest of it I think I can do sort of by removing or at least hiding my background drawing in there. So let's go ahead and I'm going to copy. Let's see what's the best thing to do in here. I'm going to go ahead and copy. And this is another technique I use. Sometimes I'll copy these guys. Go ahead and just use the rotate command, and now I've got all my walls this way that I need. So I'm going to go ahead and move this to here so that it lines up. And now I'm going to go ahead and isolate and I'm going to hide objects in here. I'm going to extend this one out to here. And this is going to turn this way. There's going to be a hallway going in here. And this is going to be some easy fixes in there. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this down. And I'm going to copy it 2'4". And the reason I'm doing 2'4" is so that I end up with 2-foot closet in here. Now I want another 2-foot closet in here for the 2 bedrooms, bedrooms 2 and bedroom 3. So I can do the same thing. I can just copy this over. And once again, if I only did it 2 feet, I'm not taking into account the thickness of the wall. So I have to do a little bit of math in my head or just draw the lines. And so I've done that up to that point. The wall here for the bedroom, it says from the outside is 11'7". So I am going to go ahead and here's another easy way. I mean, there's a variety of techniques that you can use. I'm going to go ahead and move this one. And it wants from this point, needs to be 11, actually no, from the outside point. Copy. From this, from here to here, it's going to be 11'7". I'm going to double check that. My distance from here to here is supposed to be a horizontal. My delta x is not correct in that case, so let's take a look at what I need to do. Alright, so let's rather, since I was unable to do the math, I'm going to go ahead and copy this guy over. And the thing to do is to be accurate and to do this the best you can. So I'm going to go ahead and move this wall. Move that right from here to here. That looks much better. I'm going to extend that to there. Now I've got a bathroom in here, and in reality the bathroom should be a minimum of 5 feet. This one actually is a pretty nice bathroom. It's going to tell me that the distance from this wall to the outside wall is going to be 6'6". So that's an easy move. So I'm going to go 6'6" right into there. That's going to be all the way to that bathroom. And then it's telling me that there's another 2 foot, 5 1/2 to this location in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. And I'm going to say, once again, I'm rounding off 2'6". But this now tells me that this is supposed to be a 6-inch wall. I'm going to flip it because I want it to go 2 more inches this way. And I'm going to change it from that wall, stud 4, to a stud 6. That's exactly what I want it to do. And then it's telling me that from the outside of my wall here to where this turns in for the door to the master bedroom is a total of 6'8". So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this down 6'8", and I can copy any one of my walls in here to that point. And that's what I wanted to see, and I can begin to fill it here. And this is 3 feet here, so I'm going to copy this down as 3 feet right to this location. So what I need to make sure is that I'm using the proper math. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this and pull this over, and I'm going to copy this wall from this location to here. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me an alcove here for my toilet to work with. I can trim this out right here so that's nice and clean. I can bring this across, fill this out of the way. Okay. This right in here. Okay, that's looking good. There's my bathroom. There is my bedroom. Let's go ahead and trim this out. Actually, what we can do is, yeah, we need to trim this out because that is just the bedroom width right in here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to find out where this wall comes in here. We always have to have that access door in here. And it's giving me a distance from this side of this wall of 3 foot 5 1/2 and another 1 foot 9 1/2. So let's go ahead and round that off to 1'10" and 3'6". So I'm going to go ahead and, just using line work rather than anything else, I'm going to go ahead and copy this over. First I'm going to go to 3'6" that they're telling me, and then I'm going to go ahead and, in this case, I'm just going to do another. Let's go and offset that, or let's use the copy command, and let's copy this over. Let's copy this over. I'm going to copy that over 1 foot. So I'm left with about 1'6" inside. I'm going to copy it over 1'10". 1'10". Let's try that again. Copy. From here, 1'10". Enter. That looks just right. All right, so once again, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy existing walls. Makes my life a little bit easier. To there and to there. Using trim, extend, and all these tools that are at our disposal. I'm going to go ahead and extend that wall, that wall. I'm going to go ahead and trim this wall out. I'm left with my hallway here. And I think they have both this wall and this wall going, so I'm just going to go ahead and extend this one. I'm going to use that as my extending point and go ahead and pull this one out. And I will use these as trimming edges. And let's get rid of our guidelines right in here that we no longer need. Let's delete that out. Okay, so things are beginning to look pretty good here. Just need to fillet a few more things in here. This guy's obviously needs to fillet down here. And now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the toilet compartment here. I'm going to go ahead and put the space that's going to be leaving for the shower. I may want a little bit bigger shower than I've got available in there. So first thing I'm going to do is, they say 6'2" and 1/2 inches for the enclosure. I'm going to go ahead and just do it as, I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And I'm going to copy it 6'4". Okay, and see what that leaves in terms of the width of my shower. Now that only leaves 6'10", and that leaves a good area right in here, which is 6'0" inside. We really don't need that. We're going to have a bidet and a toilet in there. We can really get away with about 5'8", 5'6". So for now, let's go ahead and move it over 4 inches. And that gives me a shower of 3'2". We could even make it a little bit less. All right. What's more important is where that front of that bathroom is going to be. You want a minimum of 5 feet. But once again, just like the bathroom down at the main level where there's a toilet, we're going to have to change this portion of the wall here to a 6-inch wall. So I'm going to go ahead and use the break command once again. And I'm going to break that wall. I'm going to fillet that right here. And I'm going to go ahead and fillet this over here now and change this wall. Go back to the properties from a stud 4 to a stud 6 wall. Now notice it flipped the wrong way. So I'm going to undo that. And the first thing I got to notice when I do that is look at my justification line. Now I can go back to it, and I'm going to go ahead and change that. Hold on one second. Okay, I did need that to come up. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the wall one more time and change that to a stud 6. There we go. Much better. And now I can draw my line right in here, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to move it up 5 feet. Now there's a couple things that'll help determine whether that needs to be bigger or smaller. But it's actually almost a work in progress, because as you develop the plans and you find out how much headroom you need for the stairway going down, etc., a lot of those answers will be given to you as you design through it. So even though this is the initial conceptual sketching that we're doing for it, there's going to be a lot of other things that need to modify. So as we develop these drawings, you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and extend this wall to there. This is going to be where the tub is. There's going to be a large fiberglass spa located right in there. I've got a location here for the closet here that I need to. There's two dimensions that they're guiding me by. One is 10 feet here. So I'm going to take this line right here. I'm going to copy that. Let's go find my copy command. And that is supposed to be 10 feet. I'm going to copy a 4-inch wall, and I'm going to move it from there to there. And then there's another line here from the outside that they've given me as a guideline, which is going to be 7'10", so I need to copy it. And I'm going over 7'10". And once again, I'm going to take one of these 4-inch walls and place it right there. I'm going to trim that out. I can get rid of my guidelines at this point. Extend. 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 Let's give this another glance over. That looks pretty good. Let me see if there's anything that's missing. Everything else is sort of going to be additional line work. We're going to have doors located later on. We got our closets. There is a chase wall here that we have to worry about, so we'll take care of that a little bit later on when we start laying out the kitchen below, so we can add that. We want to make sure we have enough room here for our doorways, the size of the doorways that are going to be in the schedule. I'm going to go ahead and go back to objects and object isolation, and I can see them now in collaboration with each other on how things work up structurally. So we know anything that has to do with a bearing wall condition is held up there. We've got the same conditions in here. This is a 2-foot overhang. Everything looks great. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that on the XRIF right now, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click this time and I'm going to unload it. So I'm just going to do, it's still there, but it's unloaded. So I've got both the main and the upper laid out already. I'm now going to do the last one, which is going to be our basement walls, and I'm going to lay those out the same way that I did the upper. I'm going to bring in the main level, which is sort of our, you've heard the saying, don't let the tail wag the dog. Well, our main level is the dog, and the upper and the basement level sort of are secondary levels of importance to that. So they would be considered the tails. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go back to my project navigator, go to my constructs, start on the basement, and I'm going to begin to draw here. So the first thing that I need to do is I am going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in an X reference of the main level. So I'm going to go back to Insert. I'm going to go to Attach. And now I should be in the right project, which I am. Okay, so I'm in Northern Residence. I'm going to go back to Constructs and I'm going to put in the main drawing. I'm going to do Open. I'm going to do it as an overlay again, and once again, just like the other one, even though it's actually above the basement, I'm going to put it at -9 feet. And there it is. Now, the basement is a little bit different, so when you take a look at your drawings and your markups, what I want you to do is take a look at how the basement is laid out. And there's a couple of things we're going to modify a little bit down in there. So what we have now is the main level shown, and what we got to do is make sure that we line up the exterior of the house where it needs to be set up. So we got to be very careful on how we indicate these walls. So let's go ahead, and one other thing about the basement, it's no longer going to be just using stud 4 or stud 6 because it's a basement and is being imposed on by the soil. We're going to go ahead and use 8-inch CMU to help load some of that lateral pressure, and also it makes it easier in terms of waterproofing and making sure that it's going to last a lot longer. So let's go ahead and let's look at the tool palettes. We want to make sure we've got a couple of types of walls in here that we're going to be using down for the main level. The two main ones are going to be CMU 8 and CMU 12 as far as the concrete masonry units are located, and then again we're going to be using stud 6 and stud 4. So let's start with the CMU 8. I want to make sure that my Z coordinate is located down in here is on, and then I'm going to start with this wall right in here. I'm going to go to my outside. I'm going to make sure this lines up on the outside here. Bring that across, zoom in, make sure you're in the right location. Snap to that. Bring that down to, I'm just going to go ahead and bring it down to about here for now. And then the last one I want to do, this is also going to be a CMU 8. So am I going to go to a repeat wall add? No, I'm just going to go here, CMU 8. I'm going to start in this corner. It's on the wrong side, so I'm going to flip it and bring that down to here. Now, remember I mentioned that this wall already indicates the 6-inch stud wall and the 4-inch brick wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a wall in here that is going to be 12 inches CMU, so that what it's doing is, you notice how the 8-inch CMU right here extends 2 inches in from the stud wall up above. I want to do the same thing in here. Now this wall in unison is 6 inches and 4 inches, so a 12-inch wall, if I line it up on the outside, is going to extend in 2 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my wall types. I'm going to do CMU 12. Let's go ahead and let's do this one more time. CMU 12, and I'm going to start my wall there. It's on the wrong direction, so I'm going to flip it. And I'm going to put it right into there. Now what I'm going to do is just fillet these walls. And when we get into the wall section, you're going to notice why we did this. So what we've done is we created a CMU wall wide enough to be able to support, actually act as a rest for that 4-inch brick wall that's located right in there. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And once again, we have to take a look at the elements that we're going to be adding on in here. Now, I'm not quite finished with my CMU. We actually, if you remember, if I go back to the main level, and we haven't started drawing it in here, but if you look at your markups, there's a fireplace in here. And that's a masonry fireplace, so it's got a lot of weight coming down. So we're going to locate that right in here when we draw it. And then we're going to need to do support walls with 8-inch CMU underneath it. Now initially, the drawings that they've given us give us dimensions on where they want those, but we may make some modifications to that. So for example, there may be some instances here where we want to do this a little bit different than was done in the markups. And of course, if we modify anything and we want to make some adjustments, we're going to have to make adjustments to dimensions. But for now, initially, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my CMU 8, and I'm just going to draw one right in here. And I'm going to have to move that eventually, but what I want to do is, based on the dimensions, hold on one second, sort of froze up on me. Based on the dimensions that they gave us, what I'm going to do is alright, so we had a slight error happen in here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and begin to draw the walls that will be supporting the fireplace up in here. Now our markups give me specific dimensions to do that at. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and line those up. I am going to be in layer 0. Let's go ahead and change that to depth points. And they're going to go from this 8-inch dimension here. And I'm going to copy this line. Go ahead and copy it. Over, and they're looking at 14 foot 6 1/2. I'm just going to do 14 foot 6. And they're looking at another 2 foot 4, so I'm going to copy that. 2 foot 4. And I'm modifying the fractions a little bit, so, and then we've got something that's calling out for 3 foot 2, so I'm going to go ahead and do offset 3 foot 2. And this is where my walls for the support of the fireplace are going to be. Now I still need the support coming across horizontally in here, and they give me a dimension from the inside right here. Now notice I'm going to the block wall, not to the 6-inch stud main up above, and it's giving me a distance of 8 foot 2, which is a little misleading in terms of what they're doing. But what I really want to do is I'm going to take a look at what's happening in here, because I want to make sure that after I add all the walls that they are asking us to add, that I'm going to be able to modify this the way that I want it to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and just draw a line from here. Copy this for now, and I can modify it later. I'm going to do that at 8 feet. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill it this one and this one, and extend this one down. So I'm going to use this as the outside of my block wall. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my, right now if you take a look at my computer sort of went on a glitch and I had to come back to it. Thank God I had been saving, and I was able to also use the recovery. So I'm going to go in here and go back to my design tools. Right in here, I want to definitely anchor them over in here. And I also want them to be able to auto hide. So this time I'm going to go down to here and I'm going to go CMU8. It's on the wrong side there, so I'm going to flip it, lay it out to there, lay it out to there, lay it out to there. Going to extend. I'm going to extend that one and that one. And this now is going to be my support for my fireplace up above. Now, one other thing that I notice in the markups is that there's actually a 4-inch wall that wraps around the exterior of the house on the basement. And that's probably used for a couple of reasons. Number one, it can hide electrical, so that you don't have to actually cut into the block wall. But it also provides a 4-inch layer of isolation that you can also add to it. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my tool properties. This time I'm going to use stud 4. I'm going to snap. Now notice it's snapping to the outside. It's not letting me snap. I'm going to go ahead and lay one out here. And because of the way this wall is laid out, I'm going to put it in here. Now, how do I fix that problem? I'm going to go ahead and flip this for now. And I'm going to try that wall command again. I'm going to go back to stud 4. And let's go to stud 4. And I'm going to start right in here. And I can start on this wall, but this one I didn't flip yet, so it's going to go to the outside. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw all the way across it here. Now this one also to the outside. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and flip this wall also. Double check this one. Probably going to want to flip that one also. And this may only be temporary until we get these walls done in there. And this one I'm probably going to... Now I don't necessarily have to do this because I can still end up drawing them. That works for now, the way that's set up. So let's go ahead and go back to wall add here. I'm going to start at this point, work my way down to here, over. Now I haven't flipped this one, so I'm just going to unfortunately have to go to there. Let's go ahead and flip this wall. And let's add that last wall, stud 4. And bring that up. And I'm going to use the fillet command on a couple of things in here to clean that up. In this case, I'm going to use the extend command. And I don't need that part of the wall right in there. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to use the break command and break this long wall from there to there. And then I can use my fillet command here. Now this is a clear example of how we can sort of begin to fix some of these errors that may have been in the book, or any modifications that you feel might be better design solutions. So let's go ahead and lay that out to there. Just real quick, using the fillet commands, extend commands, etc., we can get a pretty good set of drawings here. Let's go ahead and lay this out to there. Okay, let's go ahead and let's see. We've got our bearing wall here, which is what we needed because that's what lines up with upstairs, so that's pretty critical that we do that. These two walls are going to be critical, as is this wall right in here. There's a couple of other things here that we definitely need to correct. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go to stud 4. It's on the wrong side. I'm going to flip it, and I am going to bring that to here. I'm not using wall add because you know what happens. I'm going to switch accidentally. I'm going to go back to stud 4, flip that one. But for now I'm going to bring it right to the same location. Now what happened there? Now when my computer glitched out, guess what happened? It no longer had my replace Z on, so I need to put that on. Watch what happened. So the reason I'm getting that is if I go like this, you see what happened with that wall right in there? Okay, so right now it snapped to the wrong location. So what ends up happening is that now I have two walls that are trying to occupy the same space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go back to the top view. I want to make sure that is set up on there. I've got to check, now I have to check all of my other walls and check where their properties are. So that all looks pretty good. I go ahead and delete the wall that I just drew down here. And notice I can do that by doing that. Now with this on, let's see if that's going to solve our problem. Stud 4. So I'm going to go and flip that, and that looks better. I can extend. I can copy this one over. Perpendicular. Go ahead and hide this for now. Isolate objects, hide objects. I'm going to flip this over. Now, something's a little bit off in there, so let's take a look at what happened. If you take a look at, because that my Z was not in, this entire wall snapped down to the -9. That was what I was trying to avoid. I need to fix that and bring that back up to the proper elevation. So let's go ahead and extend that out into there. Now, this is one of those modifications that we're going to make. I don't want anything less than 3 feet here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line in here, and I'm going to copy this 3 feet up, and then I can extend these two. Down to there. Now, this may not be lining up perfectly with what was happening up above. In addition to that, I want to make sure that I get enough width here for my hallway to come in, and then I don't want this to come down a little bit too much. And I'll show you what I mean. We're supposed to have a closet in here for this bedroom right in here. So typical linear closets are going to be 2 feet inside, so an offset of 2'4" works out perfectly. I'm going to go ahead, and if I was to extend this out just like that, I got to make sure I got the right width in here. Now I really want 2'8" doors going into there, so I want to have at least 6 inches on either side. So I'm going to do a distance check right here. and it tells me that I only have 2'10". Well, I'm short by about 4 inches. So what I'm going to do is stretch this out, and even though it doesn't match what the book told me, it's telling me that, let's go undo that, obviously, stretch. I'm going to stretch this up. Now I could do it either 3'2" or 3'4". I'm going to go ahead and make it 6 inches. And hopefully I have 3'4". That's going to give me more than enough for 2'8", plus a nice ability to put casings on either side. Now, I can take this line and move it all the way down this way and see if I get enough room in here. I want at least 3'6" for my hallway. I'm going to now copy my 4-inch wall. And see where that would extend to over here. Now if you notice, there's a break right there that occurs like that. A couple of things. This is a design solution, so it's something that if you're not quite clear on what you want in here. Now some of these older homes, and this is an older home, they don't need the 3'6" available in there. Maybe because they're going to be using a 2'8" door to get into bedroom 5 in here, and we only need 3 inches, maybe they only need 3'2". So let's do a compromise. Let's go ahead and move this down and give ourselves the 3'2" that we've got in there. And, okay, and I think that would work. Okay, so all I need to do is actually, since we have 3'6" now, I just need to move this one down 4 inches. And I'm almost there. I'm a little bit off, so I'm just going to use my stretch command. Get what I want to stretch. I'm going to R for remove. I don't want this one to move. And I want this to be a clean solution like that. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that this is a clean solution in there. Not sure. I got 2 walls in there. I don't need them anymore, so I'm going to clear this out. And I'm going to go ahead and extend that out to there and extend this down to here. So now to me that's a much cleaner solution all the way along there. I'm going to find my line, delete it there, and delete it there. Now I could theoretically push this up, but that's a huge problem in terms of the bearing location for that wall. So this looks good to me the way that it's shown. I've got a few more lines to go in here. We've got a bedroom there that it's telling me is 11'8" from this point. So I'm going to copy 11'8". I can copy any one of the walls that we've got going in this direction. So that's the first one in there. Then we've got a 2-foot closet, so I can copy it. So I want 2-foot clearance inside, so I'm going to offset it 2'4". That gives me 2 foot inside. Then I've got a bathroom located in here. I'm going to turn back the upper level because I may want to line up those. I may not use it as a bearing wall, probably doesn't need it, but I can always modify it later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and isolate objects, end object isolation. And I'm going to go ahead and copy that from there to there. And it's telling me that there is another 3'7" here. Okay. And go ahead and at this point I'm going to unload the lower level in here. And I'm going to copy this up. I'm going to copy this up 3'9", the dimension they want me to do that at. And I'm going to trim that out. Trim that out. One more thing trim that out. Okay, there's a couple of other little walls that we're going to locate in here that are low walls, let's say for the bathtub, and we can always make those modifications later on. So let's take a look at everything we've got in here. That looks pretty clean. This is going to help guide what the size of our fireplace is up on the main level. Obviously some of these are structural items that we need to take care of. There's also going to be a storage underneath here. For now what we can do is just go ahead and copy this down a specific distance. They want it copied about 6'6". Let's go ahead and do that. And let's trim this out. And we're going to be doing the rest of the stairway, etc. Now let's go ahead and turn that level back on the main level. So I'm going to go down here this time to manage XREFs. That's going to create my pop-up window coming up pretty quickly, hopefully. There we go. And I'm going to reload this. So I'm going to re-click and oops, reload. Let's try that one more time. Reload, there we go. And now if you take a look at it, there is a slight difference between one and the other. So this is my critical dimension right here. I'm going to redo a distance to make sure that we're good to go. And that is my minimum distance in here. So what I can do is I can actually go back up to the upper level and I can begin to modify that. Now one of the things that is going to determine exactly what the solution to this problem is has nothing to do with this distance, but it has to do not only with that distance but also how much horizontal distance we have for our vertical flight of 9 feet, so that we can keep our treads long enough to feel comfortable as you're going up. So for now I'm going to go ahead and take that. I'm going to unload it. I'm going to save my drawing, and if you take a look at it, there's my upper level. I'm going to also save that drawing. I'm going to take my main level, save it one more time, and let's do my basement. Might as well do it again and save my basement. Alright, so we have, I think, most of the walls, probably 98% of the walls that we're going to be using. They are going to shift. There are going to be some modifications to that. But let's take a look at how each one of these levels coordinates with each other on what we did in the previous setup on setting up views. So we've already got one model view set up and it related to those. So let's look and see what that looks like. Alright, so let's take a look and let's go ahead and go to our three-dimensional, and there we go. It looks like we've got all our walls. We have to check and see what this wall is up in here. Actually, what you can do is click it and find out on which one of the XREFs it is. It looks like it's going to be part of the basement. Let's fix that. Let's go back to the basement. There's that wall we don't want. Save it. Let's go back to our model view. Now, because we changed one of the XREFs, it tells us reload it. That disappears. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now let's take a look at this in isometric view. And there we go. Now one thing that I just noticed, if we go back and we do conceptual, I got some problems with my lower walls in the basement. Let's look at this. That looks great. But all my basement walls were not the right height. I need to keep that gap here, that the same as what we have in here, because that's going to be our floor structure. So let's go back to our basement. And what we need to do is to highlight all the walls. Now, right now we only have walls, so we can actually highlight all of them, even though they're different styles. We're going to go to the properties, and we're going to change those to 8'2". I'm going to go ahead and save it. Let's go back to model. It's going to tell me, hey, I need to reload, and you're going to see this change immediately once we do that. There we go. Let's go. I'm going to do 3D orbit so we can take a look at that, and that looks fantastic. We've got every single one of our levels set up correctly, and again, if anything is wrong, we can always fix that a little bit later. So in our next video, what we're going to do is we're going to begin to insert doors and windows, and we're also going to begin to do some of the 2D line work that'll help determine things like where our countertops are going to be, and then we can start bringing in blocks for like the tubs, the sinks, some of the appliances, etc.